Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and holy shit, I'm just back from Vegas after seeing Dead & Company at the Sphere. And let me tell you, that was a face-melting, mind-motherfucking-blown time. The visuals were something I've never experienced before, and the sound was so good. If a band you like is playing the Sphere, go see them. It truly is a bucket list experience. I went again with my high school buddy Steve and his crew, and again I made new friends with awesome people, and I even went crystal shopping with a couple of the dudes, which is totally not my style. I guess when you go see the Dead, hippie shit is okay, and other things are okay too. What wasn't hippie was where I was staying. I have another good friend from high school, Carrie, who used to work at one of the A-list casinos in Vegas. But recently, she switched jobs and headed on over to the Rio. You may be wondering why she would go from an A-list casino to the Rio, because I thought the same thing. But some people like a challenge in life. And Carrie's one of those people. She and her team are planning on turning the Rio into an A-list hotel once again like it was back in the 90s, and that has already started. In my 3 nights at the Rio, I could already notice the differences. An incredible new food court, renovated new rooms that were huge, an all-new carpet that really brightens up the place. It was all coming together so nicely, and that's only like 6 months into the renovation, so I'm sure by next year it is going to be incredible again. Thanks to all the good folks at the Rio who not only took care of me, but are also changing the culture of that place. It was a pleasant surprise. After that incredible trip to Vegas, I headed home and back to the reality of my wife's chemo treatments and uncertainty. And while that part of my life is uncertain, I'm certain that this week I have another incredible podcast for you. It's back to Bobby Brown. And when we last talked to Bobby, it was like 2017, and he was known as the king of contests, and he was gearing up for another Olympic run. While that didn't go as planned, Bobby was able to make a career pivot and take his tricks to the backcountry. While I'd like to keep going and telling you more about what Bobby's been doing, I'm not going to spoil the podcast anymore. I think I do that every week, and I've got to stop doing it. What I will do is thank you for listening each week and ask you to tell a friend about the show, because that really does help things grow. Finally, please review me wherever you listen, and please, please, please listen to my sponsor ads and buy something from them. Right now, you can save 15% off all Liquid Force gear with the code in their ad. Honestly, I only work with the best brands in the business, brands that I use, and they are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Stanley, Best Day Brewing, and Liquid Force. Now, let's chat with Bobby Brown. When you beat out athletes like Ronaldo in a best-looking athlete contest, that puts you in another category of ski fame. And when you're there, what are the once-in-a-lifetime experiences that you've had? Like, have you flown in fighter jets? Have you been to F1 races? Have you partied with P. Diddy? What are the moments on the top of your list?
Oh, man. It's been mostly ski-related, but I've done a couple F1 races with Red Bull. And, sometimes when, you work with Red Bull or brands like that, there's all these crazy opportunities that kind of come about. So some weird moments, but, nothing too crazy besides the skiing stuff.
No celebrity stuff where you've just been at some event and you get to meet one of your heroes that you never thought you'd ever meet in life?
We did have after the Sochi Olympics, Gus and I and our buddy Colby, we partied on Miley Cyrus's tour bus after one of her concerts, which was a pretty unique experience to say the least. But other than that, it's been pretty chill.
Was it pretty cool seeing what a lifestyle like that is compared to what the best skiers in the world have, compared to like what the best entertainers have?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, Gus had just gotten second at the Sochi Olympics, and so he was on a rocket ship towards, that kind of type of celebrity. So it was cool to kind of just see how wild it was and just to experience it. And then Gus kind of got to that level. So I've just been following what Gus has been up to and gotten to partake some things with him. And it's just a whole different world that they're living in. It's pretty cool.
Well, you've also got to experience some pretty peak fame experiences, at least for a skier. I think the Super Bowl commercial with GoPro is probably one of the marquee things that you've done in your career in terms of exposure. But what was that whole experience like? I heard you had some crazy camera contraption.
Oh, well, I did a mega slope when we had this crazy 6-foot pole rotating around, and I did a double cork 10 with this gyrating pole, 2 GoPros on it. And so that was definitely interesting. And then for the Super Bowl spot, I was holding a drone and I skied down the run, did a front flip off a jump and kind of Supermaned it and then let go of the drone as I was front flipping. And then we had a train of my brother and another pro skier, Cody Cirillo, come behind me and do tricks off the jump while the drone kind of elevated into the distance. So that was quite the production and definitely kind of like an interesting perspective to kind of shoot. So yeah, that was an amazing experience as well.
When you're shooting a Super Bowl commercial, I mean, most of us will never see what happens behind the scenes on one of these things. Are there 50 to 100 people there making sure the shoot goes correctly?
This one was probably 15 people, which is a lot, and back in the day, a lot of the commercial stuff was way more intensive. I just think because social media wasn't around and content wasn't, as prominent of a thing. So they brought in these huge creative agencies to kind of run these projects, but that was an internal GoPro shoot. So just like some of the OGs from the GoPro team, Abe Kisselbitz, Caleb Farrow, Chris Farrow, those type of guys were on that shoot. So that one was actually a pretty relaxed shoot considering the stakes of what we were trying to accomplish. But there's been some other ones where you're running 20, 30 people and you're kind of like, seems a little excessive, but they know what they're doing.
But I would think that with what you've done and creating content the way you have, that you can probably get some quality images just on par with what they're getting with like 4 smart people in the backcountry that understand what they're doing.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you have the right crew and 1 to 2 angles, you can make something that looks incredibly cinematic. And it really just comes down to the individual, the individuals you're working with and how their creative agency kind of happens internally. And yeah, I've just gone out with my brother, so many times, and we've captured some of our best moments, just me and him, totally off the cuff and nothing too planned. And it totally depends on the day, like it's just about having the synergy that kind of aligns during the day.
Okay. Now jumping into the podcast, kind of catching up where we left off, this is part 2 with you. In part 1, we had gone through your life and times up until about 2017. I really didn't know what I was doing back then. I haven't gone back and listened, but I'm sure we talked about your life and times, and I'm sure it was pretty good. From here on, moving forward, you had already had your contest phase where you dominated all the contests that you were in, and you had just put out your first big project, Be Water, and you had said that that was the best ski year of your life. And 7 years later, when you look back on it, why was that the best ski year of your life? And is that still true?
Yeah. It's totally crystal clear that period of time because Be Water was kind of like my introduction into what I feel like I truly wanted to do. Towards the end of the contests and that whole side of things, I just felt really stuck. I just felt like, I've been doing this forever and I'm doing the same things and my skiing's looking the same way. And it just wasn't internally feeling that great. So Be Water was like this opportunity where I was like, I'm going to dedicate all my energy, all my effort into doing things that I didn't know if I was capable of doing. And then once we had that video come out and I just saw the end product and, it was only a 10-minute video, but that definitely altered the course of like my life really and kind of where I wanted to put my energy and focus. And since then, it's kind of been focused on those video projects. There's been so many ups and downs and injuries and this and that. And honestly, like, I just feel like this is the first season since that season that I feel like, okay, I'm back to where I want to be physically and mentally and just looking forward to kind of recapturing that Be Water vibe that was going down. I felt like that year I just felt so sound mentally and it just really kind of showed with the skiing and everything.
So when you look back on everything in your whole career as a body right now, would that year still be the best ski year of your life and you're looking to recreate that this year?
I honestly think this year was the best ski year of my life. And that's a close second for sure. Yeah, this year it just felt like everything kind of clicked again. Like I said, there's kind of been so many valleys, not too many peaks recently. So to have the year that I had this year, I was like, oh my God, like this feels like I'm back. This finally feels like myself of that year, of that Be Water year, of Roots Lead to Water, that project I did in Alyeska. I just felt that kind of like energy and that flow that I had that year. And yeah, it just felt amazing to know that that was still there and still available to kind of touch.
Well, it's amazing that you're able to hit your stride again this year. And I think the project that will come out, White Gold, it's like a special project to you because you're a born and raised Colorado guy. And what makes this whole project different than anything else you've ever worked on?
Yeah, this one's just like a completely local project. So everything was based out of my home. I live in Telluride and, waking up in the morning, doing my normal daily stuff, and then just going out and skiing probably in a radius of 20 miles from my house, from my front door. So this was like a really cool opportunity. Usually you're like going to where the conditions are, going to where other people are. This year it was just like, let's just stay home, let's dial in and just really figure out the zone. And so, yeah, this year I'm really excited for what's coming in the fall, and had an amazing crew out here. And, it's white gold because of the history of the gold rush here down in southern Colorado. So we ended up going to hit a bunch of different mining features, and, it took a lot of snow to kind of cover those things up because there's some treacherous hazards in the landings. But yeah, we ended up banging off a couple of some pretty sick hits and just really kept it close to home, and just kept the crew really small and dialed, and just was a really special year not to reach for anything outside of Colorado, and to keep the roots strong here.
So that's what's going to come out soon. But leading up to Be-Water, you were the talk of the ski industry, the hottest skier on the planet, it seemed like. You won everything. It started with 2 X Games gold in like 2010. And looking back, was it crazy how fast like peak ski fame came for you? How it was almost like an overnight success, and then you were the contest guy for 5 years?
Yeah. It was wild. I mean, stuff just happened so quick. And when I think about it, there was no warm up into it, kind of. It was like I won Dew Tour, and then next year won X Games. And then from then it just kind of became my life, my identity, my everything. And like I said, yeah, there was no escalation. It's just kind of just the flip switch. And that's kind of what it became. And just so grateful for it, because it was just like the most insane times ever, just peaking and feeling that flow and getting to experience all the crazy things that kind of happened within that time stretch.
And yeah, so it happened so fast for you. And then from there on, you were on the rocket ship for, I would say, 5 years or so. You were the talk of every contest, and everybody wanted to know what Bobby Brown was doing. And while you've remained relevant, it's not the same as it was during those white hot years where everything was about Bobby Brown when you talked about contests. And is it crazy how fast things kind of went back to normal for you too?
Yeah, for sure. It's like, yeah, how I kind of see it, it's just kind of just been an ebb and flow. And like as much as like it seemed like things were just on the rise for me that whole time, you still just kind of like not knowing what was going to happen the next season and making plans to do other things. And yeah, it's just been a really interesting journey, kind of like looking back and being like, man, this thing's lasted a long time, and definitely like been a crazy experience trying to kind of reinvent and to stay relevant and to do things that feel right to you, but while, making sure that you're still doing your job correctly. And yeah, it's just been a really interesting, unique journey. So yeah, I'm so grateful for all those days in the contest and kind of where those have led me and giving me so much opportunity and, aligning me with some great partners and everything, kind of leading into all this film stuff. So yeah, it's just been a whirlwind, to be honest. Like I'm still just kind of tripping that it all happened.
And what you were able to develop back then was a bag of tricks that you've been able to take with you throughout your career, and given there's variations on them. But I mean, the doubles and the triples that you were doing back then, can you name the first that you've landed?
For sure. I definitely think like the first switch double 10 that I did was the sickest feeling of all time. I think I was 15 or 16. I was living in Breckenridge, and, I was skiing the park by myself. And this was like right when doubles, Yoon just landed the hexo flip, which was the switch double cork 10. And I'll never forget just dropping into the freeway jumps. There's not one person in there. It's about 3:00 in the afternoon, end of the day. And I just take off the jump switch and just commit to doing a switch double 10, and landed on my feet and was like, holy shit. Like I just, it was truly mind blowing to me at the time. And I just remember like, I called my mom. I didn't know what to do. And I was just like, yo, mom, I just landed a hexo flip. She's like, all right, good for you. I mean, I called my buddy Will Berman, who was just, my best friend at the time, and we were just tripping out. So that was definitely like a really monumental moment, because like once you kind of get the first double, everything kind of opens up. And then right after that, I was skiing at Keystone, and TJ Schiller, Jossie Wells, Simon Dumont, the whole Nike 6.0 team was lapping the chair at A51. I'm like, oh shit, like those dudes are on the lift. I got to lace something right here. So that's when I landed my first kangaroo flip, double flat 9. So yeah, it was just like every first that you did was just this wild feeling that I don't know. I don't get that anymore, because everything's so crazy nowadays. I can't even imagine like the tricks that kids are doing, 2160s, 1800s, all that stuff. Like that's way above just my comprehension at this point. But taking off those first evers for yourself was just the most wild feeling you could ever imagine.
And how about learning them? Where you did learn that one at Keystone or whatever, but did you start with foam pits, then go to airbags, and then go to snow? Or back when you were learning, did that not exist?
No, that didn't exist at all. That's why it was kind of crazy, like, because it just became like more of a commitment thing. I mean, I jumped on the trampoline all day, every day growing up, circle trampoline with the net around it. And just, I mean, that was my life, because that was the only way I could get in the air and try those things. So like another trick I did, it was a switch double Misty 12, and that was at Keystone. And that was a really scary trick just because you had to kind of like go off switch and commit into a really blind trick and just commit to it. But they used to build jumps kind of with a step over. So at that point, like the consequences were a little nullified if like the landing was a little higher, but everything worked so much more as a progression back then because you didn't have all these safety measures. So It just kind of was like a little more like, hey dude, I'm kind of feeling this today. I think I'm just going to go for it. And that's what I really appreciated about it. There was no structure to it. Like when I started this whole thing, it was just like, hey, we're out there just doing tricks. I don't know how this is going to turn into a job or a profession. This is just strictly fun, strictly just pushing yourself. And thank God it ended up in something I can do every day and, do for work.
When you think about the biggest price that you've paid while battling to learn a trick, what was that?
Nothing as far as like learning a trick. I definitely think the scariest trick I ever did was doing like the first triple cork 14. The year before, Russ Henshaw, I was in Alyeska, and he went for a triple cork 14, and it was the most insane trick I've ever seen. I mean, he grabbed mute perfect, but just landed sideways between 14 and 16 and just hit his head so hard and couldn't get back for the session. And then the next year, I kind of ended up doing the triple cork 14 before him. And then the next day, he got the triple cork 14. So it's kind of a race for the 14, but that one was a really scary one. And I'll just never forget, like, I took off the lip and then Dumont was there, Simon. And I'm like, you think I got another one, dude? I did a double cork 10. And he's like, oh yeah, you got another one. And, just kind of once you got into that trick, got the grab, it came around pretty easily. So that was definitely like a mental battle, but everything's kind of like a progression, like you'll try a trick and I'm very measured how I'll kind of get to the next trick. So hopefully, that means there's not that much room for error.
When you have a guy like Dumont standing there saying, do you think you got another in you? Does that kind of motivate you even more when it's like one of those dudes that's on a pedestal in the ski industry, especially when you're young? And he's like, Hey, you got this. Does that kind of motivate you to do it?
Oh, 100%. Like having Simon Dumont, the guy you've watched in all the films, battled with T-Hall at X Games, done everything you could ever imagine, cube pipe, quarter pipe hit, stand at the bottom. And like, if there's one person that knows what you're capable of, it's that person. So yeah, just like have such a clear memory of just like landing and just like another one. And he goes, oh yeah. So, I mean, that's all it is. Like, that is what I grew up on. It's like, it's friend energy giving you like extra superpowers to try things. But like, they know that your best interest is in their heart, So it was really interesting because like everything was super competitive, but at the same time, it was like a really progressive competition and there was no like animosity. So just having that vote of confidence from those people around, like just gave you this ability to kind of like go to the next level with your own stuff.
Okay. And so jumping back to our last podcast, we had established that you were killing it in contests, but Sochi, the biggest contest of your life, that didn't go as planned. That was a bummer, but it is what it is. But when we last chatted, it was all about making the South Korea games. And leading up to that one, what happened at Dew Tour to start off the season for you?
Yeah. I was in Mount Ho with my brother talking with you, and we were kind of like, okay, let's make one last push, see if you can get back to the Olympics. And yeah, I went to Dew Tour. I was feeling really good that fall, honestly. I was like, man, I kind of have the run that could maybe put me back on the U.S. team. So yeah, during Dew Tour, I made the final, and I was at the top of the run. I was like, yo, Peter, you think I got the triple cork on the bottom? And the jumps were a little small, and I just like my rail game just wasn't as good as everyone else's. So we kind of felt like I had to go kind of crazy on the jumps to kind of make up for the lack of technicality on the rails.
Okay.
And yeah, he's like, yeah, I think you got it for sure. So I dropped in, laced my run all the way to the last jump, and I'm like, oh my God, I have it. Like I'm gonna make the team, like in my mind when I'm rolling into the last jump. And I go for the triple cork 14, grab mute, but right when I took off the lip, I'm like, nope, it's not happening. But ended up going around, landing on my feet, landing super back seat, and right when I landed, my knee came together and I kind of twisted while landing back seat, and I ripped all the cartilage off my femur. So I didn't know at the time, and I landed and I'm like, oh, my knee's blown. Like I'm done. My life's done. My career is done. Like, it just was a whole meltdown. And then, yeah, from there, I went to Mammoth actually the next week with my knee all messed up. I didn't really know what had happened yet, but I was like, I'm going to make it through. I'm going to make the Olympic team. And after that contest, it was like, there's no chance that this is happening. So I ripped up the veil, got my knee checked out, and yeah, we figured I had like a $half size of cartilage ripped off from the femur floating around in my knee, and ended up having to get a cartilage transplant surgery that late December to fix the knee.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm so stoked to have Liquid Force as a partner. Liquid Force has been supplying the world with the best wake gear since 1995, and that premium gear, the wake, park, boat, surf, and foil boards, are not just equipment, they're a statement that screams, I'm not just in this for the activity, this is my lifestyle. While Liquid Force boards are packed with technology that will make anyone from the first timer to the up-and-coming pro a better rider, they don't throw all that in your face. You feel that tech when you ride, and you'll find all the details around the tech on their website. But Liquid Force takes pride in creating a fun, inclusive culture that encourages everyone to escape the drama of everyday life and have some fun on the water. To make your summer better than ever before, head on over to liquidforce.com and see what I'm talking about. If you find something you like, I'm going to save you 15% with my one-time usage code. At checkout, enter the code POWEL15, that's all capital letters, the number 15 with no spaces, and you'll get that discount when you check out. My next sponsor is Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Summer is right around the corner, and based on the past couple of years, it's going to get really, really hot. And getting in the water is the perfect way to enjoy the heat. But you need to do it right, and Peter Glenn is your one-stop shop for all of your needs this summer. Think wakeboard, water ski, kneeboard, tubes, swimwear. They have everything to make your summer more fun and functional. Peter Glenn has all the brands, all the products, a knowledgeable staff, a best-in-class website if you can't make it into their stores, and a low price guarantee. That's right. If you find a lower price on a product that Peter Glenn is selling at a reputable dealer, call up Peter Glenn, let them know that price. They will match that for you. That really does help support the show by buying from Peter Glenn, and they're going to give you free shipping on orders of $50 or more. Peter Glenn isn't one of those big guys trying to take over the industry. They're the mom and pop shop that you've trusted to get your gear you need at the best prices for over 70 years. To find out more, head on over to peterglenn.com. My final sponsor this round is Best Day Brewing. And while I love the taste of a good beer, I don't always need the alcohol. I mean, my life revolves around driving my kid places, running errands, interviewing people, and all of these things I do better when I don't have a head full of alcohol. These days, when I'm not partying, I still like to enjoy an ice-cold beer, and that's where Best Day Brewing comes into play. I love their hazy IPA, the Kolsch that you can get on all Alaska airline flights, their Electro Lime Cerveza, which is the first Mexican-style NA beer that I've loved, and their new White Belgian style. They're all just so amazing and have just as much flavor as any alcoholic beer you're going to find. And they average about 60 calories a beer, and they won't get you in trouble. That's when I'm not partying. And when I am partying, I mix in a few Best Days throughout the night, and I found that by doing that, I can stay out until last call. You should try it. To have the best day or night ever, head on over to bestdaybrewing.com and get 15% off your first order. And if you make that order over $50, we'll throw in free shipping. You can thank me later. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Does a cartilage transplant surgery work? Because I've actually had tons of knee injuries, and that's the one thing that seems messed up for me is the cartilage. When you have it replaced, do you have that cushion still, or do you still feel pain, bone-on-bone stuff?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting 5 or 6 years since that time. You know, it's been a lot of tinkering to kind of get my knee back. And yeah, I mean, it was such a huge lesion of the cartilage getting ripped off that it was in pain for 3 years after that, like brutal swelling up, all sorts of crazy things. But, you know, I skied on it, filmed dynamic medium while my knee was kind of still just really bad, and just put it through hell kind of to just make it happen. And yeah, the cartilage ended up sealing up around the whole knee, and it just took a long time for like the forces, because I had a cadaver chunk of cartilage put into my knee. So that was definitely like a lot of time, and ended up getting a pretty intensive stem cell operation too that kind of gave it some juice to heal a little easier too. So yeah, it's just now feeling 100%. Like it's taken my body so long to kind of get back to this, and I kind of contribute my knee to kind of hurting my back a couple years ago, and it, you know, everything kind of works as one system. So it's been a grind, but happy to say that I'm actually feeling pretty close to 100 these days.
Awesome. And I think it wasn't just your body that was healing. I think around that time too, and almost for lack of a better term, it was like you found your soul and a deeper meaning in the mountains at that point too. Was that around the time that you moved to Telluride and that kind of like shift in your perspective happened?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I was living in Denver, and I was traveling every week to go do a contest or go to film or go do something else. And so my wife, she grew up in Telluride, and she's like, let's go home and we can base out of here and you can ski out of here and you don't need to travel as much and you can kind of focus on what you need to do and get your mind and body right. And that's what we did. So yeah, we've been down here for about 4 years, and yeah, it's just been an amazing shift. Just in every aspect of life, it's been really special.
So while it was super easy for you to be a famous pro skier when you're always on the podiums, does that change like after you have the knee injury, like you make the pivot away from contests and you become a content creating skier in the backcountry? Can you describe that shift almost from contest kid to mountain man?
Yeah, it's a crazy shift for sure. It's like never expected that it would kind of go that way, and it just kind of naturally led me there. But yeah, I mean, obviously just a lot of doubt too, because when you're kind of like embarking on something new, it's just kind of like, I don't know if this will work. Do I have the team to do it? Do I have the knowledge to do it? And it just becomes a whole different learning process to kind of take on that. So I was just super fortunate just to have like the support of my sponsors and the support of people that I work with, film crews, people I linked up with that just kind of like showed me the ropes and really helped me with the introduction to the whole thing. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing because my identity is like X Games and this and that. And then to kind of shift it and be, out of the limelight, working on projects, doing these things, it's like a really interesting dynamic to like make sure you're putting enough out to kind of stay relevant, but then also saving stuff and working on projects and working with your sponsors. It's just like a whole different world where it was just like, I'm going to go film with MSP for a couple weeks, do all the contests, and then I'm done for the season. When you move on, it kind of became all life consuming, trying to fit the puzzle pieces around. And those early stages of working on the projects was interesting and definitely learned a lot.
Well, it was almost like you were this rock star white collar skier who had everything like not handed to him because you had to do well in contests. But when you're landing those tricks in contests and standing on podiums, everybody wants to do everything for you. But then when you make the shift, it's like you're a blue collar skier like everybody else out there who has to create projects and generate exposure and generate interest, where you have to do a lot more work, I would think, to create the Bobby Brown brand compared to what you had to do there in contests, because it was just like every weekend you're on TV.
Yeah, it was pretty easy, to be honest. Like if you had the tricks and you were consistent, it's like show up, do it. And to be honest, it felt pretty easy for the first bit. And then as I got older, it became obviously very challenging to stay as good as all the younger guys and to kind of just keep up with everyone and to keep that competitive fire. But yeah, for sure. It's like the whole film world and the whole content side of things is so different. You're not told what to do. You just have to create it, come up with the ideas. And as much as that's like an amazing freedom to have, it also is just like a lot to figure out, be like, what is going to work? What do people want to see? What do my sponsors want from me? It's not as black and white as it is when you just show up and you do your job and you do the contest. It definitely is like a lot more behind the scenes stuff, which, to be honest, all I think about is skiing. So it's really fun to kind of like sit down and be like, what would be a cool video project? How could we shoot this different? How visually this could look? So honestly, like the creative process is what I enjoy the most. So it's definitely been more fun, but definitely a little more pressure where you kind of have to be so dialed in. There's no time off really to kind of like take a deep breath sometimes.
But I would think the pressure is different. This type of skiing is a lot more fun where there isn't that pressure of, hey, you have to land every trick in your run if you want to even think about being on the podium. So in the grand scheme of things, is being a pro skier in the film world more fun to you than being a pro skier in the contest world?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like just the fact that I get to go on trips with my brother, my friend, my crew, and just like get to look at the mountain and be like, hey, I want to ski that. I want to try that. I want to create that. Like that freedom is just the most incredible thing you could ever ask for. And then contests, I can't even imagine in contests right now, just because the level is so ridiculous. Like the pressure those guys must feel doing tricks of that magnitude are just wild. Like we would be doing crazy tricks only in big air and you would just like do one jump and land it. Now these guys are doing just back-to-back 16s and right and left, and the level of consistency has gone off the roof. So it's a whole different feeling, but it's a really gratifying feeling when you end a day and you're like, we just put our heart and soul into that day, and the footage we captured is something really special. So yeah, it's like really nothing I'd ask different. I think it's kind of the most dreamy thing I could be doing right now.
And when we last talked, you were the crown jewel of the Salomon team, but a year or so later, you ended up on Crosson skis. And did the injury happen when you were on Salomon and then you end up on Crosson, or does the injury happen later? Like, how the hell did you leave Salomon and go to Crosson?
Yeah, that was pretty wild. To be honest, I think Solomon just had a different idea of kind of what they were focusing on. And you've kind of seen it since. They had the craziest park program ever. They had Candy Tovex, Simon. They've had every major pro from back in the day. And they had the Jib Academy that was very strong. And then they definitely made the shift right around that time to more touring, big mountain kind of stuff. And it just didn't align with what I was doing at all. So it was kind of just like, hey, I've been on Solomon for 10 years. Let's just move on and see what else is out there. And then Crosson came on, and yeah, that was a 3-year partnership. And I told Crosson I wanted to try and qualify for the Olympics on the Solomons because I just wasn't used to their new skis yet. So I ended up getting hurt on the Solomons, but I'd already been ready to get moved on to Crosson. And yeah, Crosson was an interesting experience. I'm appreciative of just the support that Chase and those guys gave me over there. But at the end of the day, that only lasted 3 years. And yeah, I was kind of ready to move on to something new at Atomic. And yeah, I am really grateful for Crosson though, just because those guys really allowed me to work on some video projects that I never would have had the chance to do with other companies.
Well, it was an interesting choice for you. I mean, from the outside, it was like they either had to come in with a bunch of money, or Solomon made a lowball offer, or you saw a big opportunity working with Bodie, or I mean, it's just like, why them? Of all the brands out there, it was such a confusing thing to me because you were still Bobby Brown at this point. You're going to go to the Olympics, or at least that's what people are thinking. And I would think every brand would want to have a Bobby Brown. How did you end up with this small company? Did they have a lot of money to throw at you?
They did have good budgets for sure. And that was definitely part of it, just because I really want to be on a company that's going to support the film projects that I want to take part of. And so that was definitely a big consideration. And another thing was we can make small batch skis, and I can make the skis exactly how I want to make them. So, the skis I was skiing on were specifically made to what I wanted. And, I think that kind of was challenging sometimes, just being such a small company, making small batches. The R&D felt a little stagnated, I guess. But, that was the allure of it. It was I get to come in, I get to put my own graphics on my skis. Chase is going to support me with all these video projects, and I get to just try and build this thing from the ground up. And I think that's kind of a really exciting thing. That's how I saw it. I was I got to change my career. I'm not doing contests anymore. I got to work on these film projects, and let's just jump on a new brand and try and do something different and build it from the ground up. So yeah, I mean, it was an interesting 3 years, but sometimes too, you're just man, I'm just doing the same shit over and over and over again. I have the same skis. I work with the same people. It's let's just do something different. Let's try something different. And that's what we did. Jameson, my agent, was just hey, here's this opportunity. This guy really wants you on the program. Let's look at it. I flew out to Seattle, went and saw the factory. I was man, there's some big potential here. And it is what it is. And that's kind of what went down. But it was definitely a really interesting 3 years to kind of see how that whole thing ran.
You were running carbon fiber skis there. They were super expensive. They're driven by Bodie Miller Designs. Did they ski any better than the skis that you had been skiing on?
Not necessarily. No, they were, the carbon was interesting for sure. It was really hard to get used to. And just the durability of the skis was tough just because, like I said, they're making small batches. So to be honest, it was definitely a little bit of a challenge at the end, just getting on the right equipment. And so that's kind of where after Crosson, we're what else can we do? And so I was just man, I look at the Ben Shetler skis and I'm those things look incredible. And so that's kind of the next step in where we are today, which has been a really, really cool process.
Well, we're going to get to where we are today. I'm still going to talk about the Crosson time for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they're paying you top dollar to be on their brand. Then you tell them, hey, I'm going to ski on Solomon's to qualify for the Olympics because I'm more comfortable with them. And then you end up blowing your knee, but you already signed a contract with Crosson. How do they react to that news? You didn't even blow your knee out on our skis and we still have to pay you. Were they totally bummed, or how did they deal with that?
Well, actually what happened there was right after I hurt my knee, I go, hey, I don't want you to start paying me until I'm ready to get back on my skis. So the contract with Solomon was over. And I told Chase from Crosson, I was hey, I don't like that on my conscience. It just doesn't feel right to me. So in April, we can start the contract. And so I blew my knee in December. And so that more was just on me too, because I was man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to go. My knee's mangled at this point. And I'm not many athletes have made it back from really significant cartilage injuries. And so I was just I don't know what's going to happen. And so we started that later. And then I kind of rushed my rehab back and then was skiing in Australia in August that year. So that's where there was a little bit of a regret, but at the same time, it's kind of like that's what you have to do sometimes when you want to keep things afloat and you want to make sure that you're providing what you promised to all these brands. And that was, an interesting time because I definitely forced coming back early, but I got back on the skis and then ended up having 3 good years for sure with those guys. But like I said, like they put so much into me and there was so much belief there. I wanted to make sure that I could really provide what I promised that I could do for them.
And you did with that dynamic medium year. I mean, you made that movie. And was that kind of like a celebration of finally getting back to where maybe you don't feel 100%, but you're feeling pretty good and you're going to start adventuring in the backcountry, build some huge jumps, land in the POW, and hopefully create the feeling of the Be Water year? Was that the goal?
That was the goal for sure. And so, yeah, like I said, I mean, my body just was not feeling great during that, but I was really proud of what our crew accomplished. I mean, that was like a super homegrown project with my brother and my buddy Eric Mayhus leading the charge on the production of that. So to just have that season after destroying my body was an amazing year. And that was really like another one where like, okay, I'm back doing what I want. I'm back putting my energy and my skiing exactly where I want. Granted, I'm not feeling 100% physically, but it didn't really matter. That was definitely one of the best years of my life for sure. Just getting to spend so much time in the mountains with those guys. And yeah, just like Red Bull really helped us out with that project and allowed us to like travel all over the world to really make that one. So I think that'll be a special one to kind of look back on and really enjoy.
And that one wasn't a Bruce Lee inspiration like Be Water. This one was inspired by surf movies. Is that why you brought in a guy known for surf films, director Blake Vincent Cooney, into the mix? You just liked his stuff and you wanted to have more of a surfy vibe to what you're doing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've just been a huge fan of John Florence and his stuff. And I had worked on a project with Blake probably in 2010 when he was just kind of getting started with everything. And that was with Pete Jasinski over at Red Bull back in the day. And yeah, so I kind of keep loose contact with Blake. And then I saw he did View from a Blue Moon with John, which is like one of my favorite films ever. Just the soundtrack, the cinematography, the editing, everything. So I ended up reaching out to Blake and we linked up and I flew out to Encinitas a couple times and worked on that project. So that was just like another really cool side note of the whole project is just like getting to bring in some of that surf element into what we were doing. And that was like the first real, I mean, that was a 30-minute thing. So a lot went into that and Blake and his team crushed. And it was just really cool to be aligned with someone who's been working on John's films because I've been such a big fan of what he's been doing for forever, really.
In a season like that where you're just chasing snow, I think there's a lot of down days. And when I think about Bobby Brown, I don't think about the crack-smoking R&B singer. I think about the clean-cut park skier who changed his game up to ski in the backcountry. And there are down days in the backcountry. And with that, do you drink it blue? Do you ever smoke weed, eat weed, or do anything else? Or are you just clean-cut Bobby Brown?
I'm clean-cut. Yeah, I don't drink at all. Haven't drank for years. I used to have some drinks back when I was growing up. But yeah, I haven't drank probably for 5 years. I don't do any drugs, nothing. No, pretty clean-cut.
Well, I would imagine that being clear-headed is super important because you're going huge and you're bringing your park tricks to the backcountry. How much harder is that, landing those tricks outside of a manicured park jump?
Yeah, it's just there's so many variables. Like the end run's always gnarly. Obviously, the bomb holes, you got to land it early, else the landing gets chewed up and destroyed. The skis you're on big 120 millimeter skis. So that's obviously like a huge thing. So yeah, it's not even close for sure. And in that year, it was definitely the goal. I was like, I want to go lace tricks that I do in the park, in the backcountry. And so that was definitely like the motivation for that whole year. Yeah, that was just like, you got to make the jump perfect and you just got to land it quick because that landing just gets destroyed. And once that landing's destroyed, your chances dwindle to land anything.
Okay. And after all you've been through in your career, I would think that premiere for Dynamic Medium at the Oriental Theater had to be a career highlight for you. Can you describe how special that night was?
Yeah, that was so sick. Yeah, we were in Denver and the theater probably holds like 550 people or something, but we packed like 600 people into that thing. And it was just one of those moments where everyone who I've grown up with, everyone I used to ski with all showed up. And yeah, you just feel so grateful for everything and so grateful that you have so much support and belief. And it was definitely like a crowning moment of just things come together, and that's kind of what I always look for is when everything just kind of flows and comes together. And that was just a crazy night. That was, a beautiful night just to have my family, friends, and all sorts of people from all over skiing come and support the project. So it was very special.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and Elan Skis doesn't need to sponsor this podcast in the summertime, but they do it because they understand the importance of cultivating the stories that make the snow industry what it is. So while they're cultivating stories off snow, on snow, Elan is building a cult following here in the US, and there are a few reasons for that. First is that the award-winning Ripstick line has proven time and again to make you a better skier. The reason why? Elan uses the best materials known to man, and that's no joke. This is the same Elan known for building award-winning luxury yachts, so there's never any cutting corners and the fit and finish is better than anything else on the ski wall. Just look up and down and compare your Elans to anything else and you'll see the difference. The second reason why Elan's selling more skis in the US is their Playmaker line. Yep, Elan has a line of twin tips that will go head-to-head with anything on the mountain. They're light, they're lively, and they're built better than any other twin tips on the wall. I'm skiing the 101 and it's been my daily driver for 2 years and they're so much fun. Before you buy your next pair of skis, please demo a pair of Elans, or just head on over to elanskis.com, pick up a pair, and trust me, you're going to elevate your skiing experience. Next up, it's Outdoor Research, and I've been using OR products since I moved to Seattle almost 25 years ago because they outperform everything on the market. I mean, Outdoor Research builds products to perform in the wet, soggy, cold weather of the Pacific Northwest. And when you live where we do, you need to have the best in class, and that's what OR's always been. While OR's always been known for building the industry-leading gear for mountaineers, and they still do that, over the past few years, they've been focusing on working with their A-list athletes in the ski and snowboard world to create new fits and kits for the snow scene, which everyone has seen on X Games podiums and on legends like Mark Abma. And now, OR is launching its freewheel mountain bike collection, and there's no cutting corners here either. Well, I could tell you about it. Here's what the folks at Free Hub Magazine had to say about what OR is doing in bike. Outdoor Research, with its legacy rooted in scientific inquiry and a passion for the outdoors, has once again raised the bar, offering riding gear that's not just functional, but also stylish and durable. The meticulous designs and thoughtful engineering of the Freewheel collection have the power to transform the mountain biking experience. Reviews don't get much better than that, and to see all the new products that OR has, head on over to outdoorresearch.com. My final sponsor this round is Stanley, the iconic Northwest brand that invented the category of keeping things hot and cold over 100 years ago. You remember Stanley from your grandfather's green thermos that kept his coffee hot and cold forever when he took you out on adventures. Well, Stanley still makes that bottle and so much more. I know you know this because they are absolutely blowing up all over the world. With Stanley, you can think tumblers, water bottles, barware, camping utensils, coolers, vacuum bottles. There really is something for everyone, and you aren't going to find them overpriced like a lot of copycat designer brands that have popped up recently. Stanley is the originator, and they pride themselves on providing you with the best products at the best value. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. The one thing about digital content these days is that there's so much of it. And while the tricks are crazy and the jumps are so big, do personal projects like Dynamic Medium not see as many eyeballs as they used to because there are so many other personal projects these days?
I think it's tough, because it's like, what do you find is the success? Like, do you find like a 6-second clip on Instagram with 2 million views successful? Or do you see like 100,000 people saw your 30-minute project, and to me, like, it's very interesting just because you go to a sponsor and be like, yeah, look, this video got 1 million views. But it's like when I watch a project and it's a long length project, it hits me way harder than like a clip that goes viral would. So I definitely think it's very important to kind of have these long length things and to have these projects that have a lot more depth to them. I just think that creates a stronger stronghold for skiing and the culture of it, just to maintain while we're getting these quick bits over and over and over again. But I obviously like that too. It's pretty cool to just pull up your phone and just see the most insane stuff you'll ever see, just like every single day. But it would definitely take something special to get people to really tune into those longer length things.
Yeah, I mean, they're investing in you and what you did throughout a whole season when they're watching the longer length clip. When they're just flipping through their phone, it's almost just like a quick clip of porn almost, You just sing it really quick. It's like titties, done, but it's out there. After you get off Crosson, and I'm probably saying it wrong, I say Crosson, who cares? I don't even know if they're still around, but then you're skiing on Rossignol for a little bit, and then you're on to Atomic, and you have an agent, and when you're looking for a new brand, is it as simple as you asking your agent to go get you some skis to try, and then you start out like a flow kid, or do you get put on the team right away? How does that work? Do you have to start from scratch again?
Yeah, this was a pretty interesting one. I'll kind of rewind a little bit, but after Dynamic Medium, and then I filmed one more project, Tilted Perspectives, and that was in the backcountry in Jackson. And then my knee just got so bad that it was unbearable to walk. And this is like the knee I had surgically repaired. So then I'm at another crossroads again. And that's when I got that really big stem cell procedure. And I got that done in December of, I don't even know what year, but I took that year off, because my knee was so fried. And I just kind of tried to ski, couldn't really ski, was dabbling. And so then this was the year after Crosson, and I didn't have a ski sponsor. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to ski anymore. Like maybe time's up and the knee just can't handle it anymore. So anyway, we ended up doing a pretty drastic stem cell procedure that took forever to heal. And the first time I went skiing was in Sauce Fe. And I didn't have a ski sponsor at that time. So I hit up JK and I was like, hey, like, what about Rossi? Like, they have a pretty cool brand. I kind of like what they're doing over there. And it was more just me just kind of being like, oh, that looks like that could be a cool opportunity. And he knew someone who worked at the company. And so they ended up just getting me a pair of skis for my trip to Sauce Fe. And then in Sauce Fe, I ended up breaking my back on those Rossis. And I was out for another year after that. So that whole Rossi thing just kind of fizzled out and didn't really go anywhere. And it was more just like a little placeholder just to kind of get some skis on my feet for the trip.
Well, you brought up the back. I'm going to talk about the back. I was going to talk about sponsors. I'm going to get back into that in a minute, but we should talk about your back injury. So I think it's like maybe one of the first big trips after the pandemic. It's 2021. You're with Red Bull. You go to Sauce Fe. That's where people go early season, either to test skis or to get some early season training in. What makes Sauce Fe so cool?
Yeah, Sauce Fe is amazing. I mean, yeah, when I was doing contests, it's like the ultimate training grounds. And my really good friend, Charles Beckinsale, he is from Australia, and he's the park builder over at Stomping Grounds and just builds the most incredible jumps. Sickest park by far. And it's just like a mecca training facility for all slopestyle and half pipe riders. So yeah, it's just an insane place. I've probably been there at least 6 times. And this year I went just because my good friend, Matt Christensen, who unfortunately passed away right after that trip, but he called me and wanted me to come ride with some of the younger riders out there and just kind of be there and cruise around. So there was no intention to kind of be training there, but it was just more of a trip to just kind of get involved with the younger Red Bull crew.
And on the Instagram post that you put out, you said that on the day that the accident happened, you felt off all day. How did you feel off? And then what happened that day?
So I was there for 30 days in Europe. I'm hitting my wife up. Nikki is just like, Nick, I got to come home. I'm so cooked. Like, this has been a long trip and my knee's pretty messed up and not feeling great. Anyway, I was like, all right, I'll go get one more day in. So, it's like about a half a mile walk to the gondola from the hotel. So I walked to the gondola from the hotel, forgot my boots.
Huh.
I walked back to the hotel, grabbed my boots. I walked back to the gondola, forgot my ticket. Walked back to the hotel, grabbed my ticket. Walk back to the gondola, get on, and head up. So like right there, I'm just like, something in the universe is telling me like, yo, just chill out. Yeah. Just don't go. You do not need to be up there. Of course, I force it at that time. I just wanted to ski. It'd been 2 years of trying to come back and not feeling healthy. And all I want to do is just ski and try and get better. And anyway, this is about third run, and the vibe there is just training. People show up second run, they're doing triple corks. Every Red Bull helmet kid out there is just doing the most insane stuff ever. And I think I just got kind of wrapped up in the moment a little bit. And I did a switch 5 off the jump and then dropping into the jump. And in my mind before that, I'm like, I'd love to do a triple cork just to prove to myself that I could still do a triple. And then I could do it in the backcountry this year. And that was kind of my goal for the trip. But anyway, I wasn't going for a triple on this jump and ended up dropping in. I do a switch double 9, and then I'm about 30 feet in the air still. Oh. And I ended up just tucking into another one. So pretty much doing a 2.5, almost a triple, and landing completely on my back. Like, I knew where I was in the air and I just braced. And so I kind of turtle shelled. I curled my back and just took every bit of force directly to my spine. Oh. And just the feeling and the explosion of that was something I'd never felt before. So that was definitely like a pretty savage injury. And then from there, I was lying on the ground, just like, oh my God, I'm gonna be paralyzed. My back shattered. I just know it is. And I ended up like, I'm on the ground. I pulled my phone out and I called my wife, Nikki, and I was just like, Nick, I hurt my back. I hurt my back. I hurt my back. And then I don't remember anything else. And so she's just in the States, just like what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's midnight there. I woke her up and she just gets this message. And then anyway, Charles took my phone and told her what was happening. And thank God to like the Swiss crew they got a helicopter, loaded me up and flew me to Sion, where I spent the next 10 days in the hospital.
You're an elite athlete. Your back is very, very important. Do they consult your doctors or agent or anybody, or is it right into surgery because it's that serious?
This was a pretty insane thing. Yeah, that was crazy because no one spoke English at the hospital. So everyone's speaking French. The doctor barely speaks English. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know what's going on. I'm in a blur. Thank God to Red Bull, Jameson, Lisa Burns, Matt Christensen, all these people at Red Bull, Gian, coming together and making sure I got the right treatment, because what they could have done if I was in a different country is just fuse my back together at 5 levels and then my life is completely altered. But thanks to the doctor, he's just an amazing spine surgeon who was just happened to be there for a 3-month stint. He was a neurosurgeon, and they got in touch with the Wings for Life people from Red Bull and then made sure I was getting the correct surgery while I'm like pretty much just out in a bed, don't even know what's going on. There's so many people behind the scenes, like making calls, translating things to make sure everything happens. And then I go into surgery the next day because my fractured vertebrae were pushing up against my spinal cord. And I ended up getting a stabilization surgery, which means that there was potential to get the hardware removed. So I had 5 levels stabilized. So I had 10 screws, 2 rods, and some micro jacks injected into my vertebrae where they were able to pump them back up to the original size. Yeah, anyway, it was just this extensive surgery that happened so fast with the craziest language barriers, but so thankful to Red Bull really for just orchestrating that I got the correct thing done, because I wouldn't be skiing anymore if that didn't happen.
Yeah, I've never really thought about what happens when you're out and you need the right people advocating for you in the background. And it sounds like you had that. Everything worked out. But when you think about it, the scars look pretty gnarly. Do you still have back issues to this day? Do you still feel things because of that injury?
No, it's pretty wild. After that surgery, 6 months after, I got all the hardware removed from my back. And, a lot of people leave that in forever, but I was like, man, I need to get this out because I need to get back to skiing. Else I don't even know what I'm going to do in life, or just not even for like a career. I was just like, I need to get my body back. And so we ended up doing like the first ever robotic surgery up in Vail, spine surgery at that hospital in Vail. And it was a super minimally invasive surgery from Dr. Galizzi, and went in and used this robot to drill into my back and unscrew all the screws, pull all the hardware out. And then within a month I was skiing again at A Basin. So it was wild, but at the same time, like, couldn't have gone better with the healing process. And no, my back feels amazing at this point.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. And so with your skiing throughout your whole career, you've always put your life on the line. That's kind of what you do for your sport. And it's kind of, what you do to make yourself happy, but it's also your job. And I didn't really ask you about money on the last podcast because I was pretty new into what I was doing. And I guess I really didn't hammer down on money and stuff like that. But in thinking about you, when you think about the best year that you've ever had as a pro with your victory schedule and sponsors, and I'm going to guess it's during your contest days when you're on top of the world, are you making $300-400 a year being a pro skier?
You're doing pretty well for sure. It's definitely during those contest years where there was a lot of dependency on how you were doing as far as contest results. So yeah, there were a couple good years in there when I was doing pretty well. And yeah, I still just have so much support from my sponsors somehow, and so much appreciation to those guys for keeping this lifestyle alive. And yeah, money is fine, and my life is all good.
Do you own a house or two and have some good investments from the gravy days of your career?
For sure. I just want to give a huge shout out to my parents for sure, because like a lot of stuff was happening very young. My first contract was when I was 16 from Under Armour. And my mom was like, oh my God, they're actually sending you like real checks that actually convert to real money. And I was like, yeah, this is wild. And so they were adamant and, helping me set up all those financials and getting all that stuff lined up. And so, yeah, own a house, my wife here in Telluride, and we're doing fine and getting to live off of skiing. So it's a pretty amazing thing.
You had mentioned Under Armour. They were a sponsor way back when. I think Spider is your outerwear sponsor now. I think you have a pro kit with them. But what's funny about you and outerwear sponsors is that you're the dude who doesn't like wearing outerwear. I mean, you wore a t-shirt in the Olympics and you ski in a hoodie a lot. Does that ever come up with outerwear brands? Like, hey, we'd like you to wear a jacket.
That was definitely a contentious topic when I was cruising with Under Armour, for sure. Yeah, because I had a pro model jacket with them as well. And yeah, I just skied a lot in cotton. But now I'm definitely wearing the jackets pretty much 96% of the time, I'd say. So yeah, not an issue anymore. As I venture more into like more adverse weather conditions and deeper in the mountains, definitely having the right gear makes sense. But yeah, during the Under Armour days, they're like, yo, man, we're not trying to sell like fleece hoodies. We're trying to sell like jackets. So it'd be sick if you wore one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's what right now with Spider, it's been so dope working with those guys and building out that kit. So like I want to wear that kit because it's exactly what I wanted. So the jacket is definitely in the kit nowadays.
And the next thing I noticed doing my research about you is something that could have been the precursor to your Red Bull Cascade events. I'm talking about the top to bottom runs you did a few years ago. It's pretty much like a top to bottom slope style run at Breck. I think you did one at Alpental and somewhere else. And first, where did the idea for that come from?
Yeah, that was totally one of those moments where it was just spur of the moment. And my brother was there and we're like, hey, I'm like, dude, I'm going to link it from the top of Breck to the bottom of Freeway. And that was just during like public hours. And we had like one of those, it was like a Japanese first ever gimbal on like a GoPro 5 or something. And we linked the whole top section of Contest Bowl, come down. We're on 4:00 getting into the park. And I mean, there's like hundreds of people in the park. So we're like, who knows if this is going to work? Go down, blink the first trick, and then hop into Freeway. And then ended up lacing the top section of the jumps. And there was like the big Japanese freeride team was sitting on the knuckle. And I was like, oh my God, I got 2 more features to make down this thing. And so I just kind of pulled a lame move. But I was like, yo, and yelled at them. Ended up going over the knuckle and ended up lacing the last 2 jumps. And right as I land on the last jump, I look over and I see the camera is just completely flipped. And I'm like, oh my God, how long has that been there that we missed it? And that was before you could like look on a GoPro and see if you got it. So like I lost my mind, and my brother and I, we tried it probably 10 times. And, those are long runs to make it to the top of the mountain. And we were just like depressed. We get back to the car and we're just like, no way. And then, might have been some words had. And then we go home, pulled up on the computer, and it was in the last millisecond that the camera crapped out after the whole run was done. And so that was the first time we ever got a top to bottom. When we saw it, we're like, oh my God, like how did that work? So yeah, then that kind of became a theme. I did one at Alpental, Winter Park, and at Mammoth. And that is 100% where the Cascade idea came through. And those are just cool because they're battles, and that's just like the most gratifying thing when you lace it, because it comes down to the filmer who has to be incredibly amazing at skiing. They have to be able to hit all the features. They have to be dialed, and they're worried about their skiing and about keeping me in the frame. And all I have to do is just focus on what I'm doing. But, sometimes when it's, slushy conditions, like you get slush sent up into the lens, or you make a weird turn, or I mess up, or he messes up, and it just becomes this like really cool team dynamic. And another favorite moment of one of those was at Mammoth. It was our last try. We've been trying this for 3 days, trying to get a top to bottom from Mammoth. And we just make it down the whole run. And I had barely made it to the last jump, had hit the last jump once maybe because we hadn't made it down. And I was like, oh man, I'm going triple back. And so I just sat back and somehow landed a triple backflip. And Matt Cook, the ski chef at the time, just the celebration was one of the coolest moments I've ever had in my career, like by far. So pretty much for all of those top to bottoms, when you get the line, it is a crazy feeling. So it was pretty cool.
And what's the average number of takes it gets to nail a top to bottom?
I mean, Winter Park probably took 20 times. Breckenridge probably took 10 times. Alpental took the heat was insane. The heat at Alpental was like 90 degrees.
Huh.
And, like Northwest, 90 degrees. And late May, the snow was like sandpaper.
Yeah.
So it was just like, that took forever to get. And that was Alex Martini from Step Productions. He was shooting that one on probably a 40-pound gimbal rig with a Red camera. So this wasn't on GoPro. This was on a Red. So that was just like the most beast effort from Alex to man that. But the crazy thing is like, it took me so long to nail these runs. But then like I bring other athletes to Cascade, and it's just like top to bottom's just first go. So like that was kind of the whole idea with the Cascade event, was like, I want to see what other people could do on these lines that I've been fortunate enough to build and ride. So it's really interesting to see like everyone's approach to those really long runs.
And it's like the coolest event in skiing that not everyone knows about yet. And it's like you have to be able to ski everything. You have to have tricks. You have to have style. You need to have legs and lungs of steel. And you just had the second rendition of the event. and it seemed like it went off. What are the standout moments, and who are the skiers that are built for events like this?
This year was so sick, because this was like a last-minute switch to Solitude, and thank you to Solitude so much. Scott Cherry, Tyler Seitz, all those guys, Amber, their whole team came and just crushed for us. And it was epic because we were able to farm the top section so we could let it snow. And I mean, Utah had an amazing spring, so it was just 7 inches after 7 inches. And so we had fresh upper section every single day into the lower section where Charles and Brandon Dodds built, amazing park features. So it was sick. I mean, Colby Stevenson, he is the guy who can ride everything. And so he obviously dominated this contest, but it was also cool to see just more, not unknown people, but more people that aren't huge names in the sport have a chance to ride, Jed Waters. He was probably my favorite to watch, probably the sickest style for sure. And those two guys were both on my team. We made it a team event this year. And it was cool to have Gus Kenworthy come out of his retirement and come shred that course because he still has so many skills. And it just takes a really unique skier to kind of be able to do everything and then to do those type of tricks at the bottom.
Yeah, and then other than Red Bull Cascade, the biggest thing that we've seen from you was the road gap this year. I mean, you had a 7 and a double back on it. It was so insane, the speed that you went. And when you're thinking about the speed, how do you figure out the speed for that? Because you were going so fast on both of those hits.
Yeah, that was a crazy one for sure, just because I took as much speed as was possible. And so right before that, I was going to start about 40 feet lower. And I was maybe I'll just hike up and I don't want to overshoot it though. And then I ended up hiking up to the tree line. So as far as I could have gone and just going dead straight. And it's just one of those things when you're in the rhythm of things, you just know speed somehow. And obviously it's not 100%, but for the most part, you just know speed. So yeah, first hit I did a 3 over it and cleared everything. And then from then on, I was okay, the faster, the better. You're not going to overshoot. So just go as fast as you can. And we got about 4 tricks on that and a couple more coming in white gold. So that was a really scary one, and one I don't necessarily want to ever do again, something like that. The consequences were pretty drastic on that one.
Yeah, totally are. And that is our podcast, but I have something in the podcast that you might not know about. It's called Inappropriate Questions. And you were on the show so long ago that I didn't even have this as a segment. But what this is I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. And this week I was able to get another Colorado native, another X Games gold medalist, Peter Olenick. And Peter...
Oh, God.
Yeah, he's a legendary skier from the generation before you, and he's a really fun person with no filter. And are you ready for question number 1 from Peter?
All right, hit me.
Question number 1 would be, I would like to hear some of your skid mark stories.
I don't even know what a skid mark story is.
I think it would have to do with shitting your pants.
I don't even know if I have any, honestly. None are coming to mind, Peter. I'm sorry.
All right, so shitty question for question number 1. We will jump into question number 2. Here we go.
I think the audience would like to know where and how you slept and spent your wedding night.
Wedding night was crazy. Yeah, that was definitely one of the craziest nights of my life. Best day of my life, for sure. But that was, back when I had a couple drinks that night. And I think classic Matt Margette's move was happening where everyone's shirts were getting the buttons ripped off and everyone ended up shirtless. And I had super long hair at the time. And yeah, my wife ended up having to hold my hair while I was puking in the toilet all night long. So it was a perfect first night to marriage for her, I'm sure.
So that is Inappropriate Questions, and that's the podcast. And like the first time around, I'm leaving this one thinking, wow, it's refreshing talking to Bobby Brown. He's so nice, he's so personable, he's got his head on straight. But what's different about this time is that in the 7 years since we chatted, you've gone from chasing gold with the U.S. ski team to chasing powder with your friends, and you're still a pro skier. It's just a totally different type of pro skier. And it's cool that you've been able to make the pivot and make that successful. So thank you for telling us a story, and thank you for coming back on.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me for the second time. Really appreciate it, dude.
So that was time with Bobby Brown. And I do have to clarify, if you're wondering what happened with Peter Olenick's last inappropriate question, well, I cut that one out. It was way over the line, which I usually love, but Bobby wasn't feeling it and we decided to cut it. I should have known that one wouldn't work and gotten a different one from Peter, but my bad. Hope we didn't offend you, Bobby, and thanks for sharing the second half of your story. Not everyone can go from the top of the contest world to a film-only skier, but even with all your injuries, you've been able to make it happen, and that's pretty impressive. That's the podcast. At this point, I should mention my limited edition t-shirts that I'm selling on my website. No podcast has ever had merch that looks this good, and that's because I invested in art from one of the most talented artists in the world, Jeremy Baytall. I only have a handful of larges left, and then it's all extra larges and mediums. Please buy one. It does really help things. Finally, I want to thank you for tuning in each week and ask you to listen to my sponsor ads and buy their products. The brands that make this show happen are Stanley, Outdoor Research, Elan Skis, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Liquid Force, and Best Day Brewing. Have a great week, everyone.